Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OnReviewCast, your weekly go-to review show for all things media. I'm your host here, Ash, and today we're taking a look at House of the Dragons on review. On that review, I said that weird, but
HBO series House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 6.
yeah, definitely take a look at House of the Dragons, episode 6. You guys, before I continue, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. All those loyal listeners out there who've been with me since, the days of Barry and who just continuously listened on. Thank you so much. We've been doing this for a little bit now, and it's your motivation and your dedication that actually to listening that actually promotes the show and helps us to move forward. So thank you for that, and I truly appreciate it. But on with the episode. Let's just jump right in. So this episode, I will just be straight up. First watch. First of all, that first scene, there's just the moan coming off the heels of the last episode, considering the last episode was, based around fornication and, sex and the insinuations and etc. Just talking about that a little bit and the whole, being dignified as a princess and doing undignified things as a princess. House of Thrones, I'm going to Game of Thrones with that. House of Thrones, House of Dragons, House of the Dragon. Really is interested in taking you on a journey of, the whole adult life experience. People, get involved with other people, they fall in love, and they have sex and they produce children as a result. That's one of those is a consequence of that. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it's definitely a stepwise process. You fall in love, find someone first, you fall in love, and then they fornicate, and then and then they produce the steps of essentially bearing these children. We have reached a point in the story as when they have essentially started birthing children. Because at first you have these moments and you're thinking, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this? Like, oh Lord, another sex scene. Because again, it's Game of Thrones. But it's not another sex scene. It's actually Rhaenyra attempting to give birth. And just as ever, Game of Thrones universe, House of Thrones, is exactly what you expect. It's it does its best to show. I'm actually surprised it didn't actually show everything, but it does its best not to hold back on the realism of the situation, the gravity of the situation, and just the bluntness of it. I think. So as she's giving birth, she's successful in the birth, and etc. And not seconds after. Man, this story, it's so fascinating to me. Not seconds after, one of the handmaidens, I guess, comes in and she's like, the queen would like to see the baby. And first of all, let's just back up a little bit, at least, or whatever. I'm gonna admit to you guys, when this first started, I was very confused. I was very confused as to because we have another time jump and it's different actors. It's not the same actors as before when Rhaenyra was supposedly supposed to be like a child. Well, not a child, but early teens, late teens, probably early 20s of the last episode what we saw. So this series is doing something completely different from Game of Thrones, where the timelines or the time jumps aren't so jarring. This one is now she's a full-grown adult, and she's giving birth, and it's a completely different actress. So at first, I didn't even know that was Rhaenyra until they start saying in the background, princess and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck is this bitch? Now, who's this now giving birth? I was like, oh Lord, don't tell me this is maybe I was just very off guard. I was like, are we in the past? Are we in the future? Are we Are we in the present right now? Is this a different Targaryen family or something like that? I was just very confused. But it turns out that's actually Rhaenyra. And yeah, it's a bit jarring. Okay, like last episode, we saw her getting all freaky deaky and frisky with all these people, and actually no, she was just getting married. Sorry, wow, whoa. Just the time from which we're recording these guys. So she was in the midst of just actually, getting married and actually just seeing, the consequences. She was learning the consequences of being married and having to be set up by an arranged marriage by her father. And last time, if we remember as well, the king wasn't doing so well, so hot, right? So it's kind of like, ugh. And I'll admit, like at that point in time, I was kind of like, this motherfucker ain't gonna make it. Like, I was like, no, I don't see him. It does not look great. It does not look great for him. And it doesn't look like he is going to make it through to the next episode. So this lady comes in, she's like, oh, the queen would like to see, the child. The queen would like to see the child. And it was kind of like, already you could kind of sense because what we've been discussing here on Review, and we've seen in the episodes, like we've been seeing that essentially this is her worst nightmare. This is her worst nightmare. That it truly is Rhaenyra. She's just basically giving birth. They're blatantly illustrating this right in front of our faces. Like, hey, this is literally her worst nightmare, and this is like her worry. One of her potential. Well, not even like one of her potential worries, but like because it's funny because like. Alicent has only been brought to this idea, has been implanted in this idea that, people are going to come after her children because of who she is and because of who they are. And Rhaenyra is going to basically try to usurp the throne. And it's kind of like Alicent is now in the power because she's the queen to, maybe possibly do something about this now that it's years later down the line. Because Rhaenyra has a child now. And she's supposed to be next in line to. He's supposed to be next in line to. Essentially, he's supposed to be next in line to essentially succeed her after the king, after her. So her family, her line is supposed to essentially rule the kingdom. Is what I'm trying to say. After the fact of when she passes. But I mean, again, it's all tactics at this point if you think about it, because Alicent has now the ability to sentence that baby to death or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So the concern is kind of like right there. And Rhaenyra, and when she asks for the baby, she's like, "Excuse me, miss, the queen would like to see the baby." It's kind of like she just gave birth, and you want this woman to hand the child over to the queen, to Alicent, really? For what? For some devious ways? Because Alicent has already been kind of manipulated in this way to think that, well, fuck, like, someone's gonna come after her children, or someone's coming after her children. And it's like, realistically, here's the funny thing, realistically, no one's coming after her kids. No one really wants to come after her kids. Rhaenyra thus far hasn't showed any motivation to want to destroy anybody's family just because of their basic creation. I'm just saying, it's something that I noticed. But Rhaenyra just basically is like, she's like, oh, the queen would like to see the child. She's like, why? And then she's like, it was kind of like one of those moments was like, I don't know, just really regret. She's like, all right, fine, I'll go myself. Because, like, if she just handed over the baby, like, one of her concerns is, like, she would just, like, again, murder this child in cold blood, and she would just be justified because, again, she is the queen. She can essentially do whatever she wants. So during this time skip, we also see Sir Laenor, the guy who she's married to, his actor has also changed during this process. And trying to be the strong, independent woman she is, she's like, I don't need any help. That's when she walks up the stairs, and she's like, and he's kind of like, just at least let me hold your arm. And because they're supposed to be a couple together and showing unity in this. And it's very, okay, let me try to go through this analysis without giving my my thought overall. It just looks very like she doesn't want any help at all. It looks very she's fighting his help every step of the way, essentially. But again, this is the way that they're choosing to introduce this new era or this new timeline as to where we are within essentially the story. But yeah, anyway, moving on. Like, so they actually literally just walk with this baby as she just gave birth, dude. Like, that should not be up and about, honestly, like, as she just gave birth. And who's guarding the door? It's a Christian Cole. Sir Christian Cole. Oh, that old fling, Renera. Anyway, so we know that Christian Cole is still a knight, and he's still acting on his duties, despite the night of debauchery they had, and despite, him being in somewhat on the side of cahoots with Allison and almost attempting to murder himself. So we know that he didn't murder himself because, like, that night at the whole dress rehearsal kind of thing, he was about to do it, and and Allison, I assume, like, guessing that she stopped. But then we meet Allison, and everything's just different, right? Her actress has just changed too. Her actress has changed, and the thing is, at this point on first watch, we don't know before what seconds later what happens. We don't know the status of the king. In Game of Thrones, we see Joffrey's mother, who was married to the king, rules for some time, and even after when Joffrey died, she began and took up the crown once again. And she started to rule. So at this point, she was the highest ruler, and she was in charge of everything. So at this point, like, Allison, we assume that Allison could be the one who's ruling. And Allison could be in charge of essentially everything in everything in King's Landing right now. She could be the sole ruler of King's Landing as we speak right now. And that's why one of the reasons why it was kind of like of major concern, really, right? If you think about it, because, like, again, Allison has the power to do, if she has the power to do whatever she wants, being so paranoid about her kids being overthrown and all this other stuff, she just has sentenced her to death. Sentenced the baby to death, essentially, and just stopped that line right there, as well as her. But then seconds later, we see who is it comes out? This motherfucker Viserys, and it's like, oh shit, this motherfucker is still alive. And something that I think I just noticed was that, like, he's alive, but he's now lost an arm, I think, and that's what it kind of looks like. And it's I will be completely 110% honest with you guys. I did not think this motherfucker was alive. On the second watch, of course, yeah, we know that he lives. But on the first watch, I was like, this dude is gone. No. I was like, he's gone. If you agree with me, guys, let me know in the comments for sure. Because, like, he was decaying. And he's not looking his best here, honestly. But he's alive. And it's so... First of all, way to go, man. way to be fucking tough. Way to be fucking tough against this thing that you've been battling from, like, episode 1. We've seen you slowly decay down, trickling down into this like, oh man, this, like, shell of a man, really, of your former self. And his hair's super thinning, his skin's not looking the best, it looks all patchy and it's astounding that he has made it this far. I thought this dude was done. Honestly, I'll be straight up. I thought this motherfucker was dead. I thought he was done. I was like, he's not gonna make it. It's been years that I was like, surely the king is dead now. But he just comes out of nowhere. He's like, there are my people. I was like, oh. So there's still kind of like, and then his presence, right? His presence kind of brings about, like, some kind of, like, peace to the situation. We kind of, like, understand that, like, well, like, if he's alive now, the chances of, Allison wilding out is very unlikely. But yeah, Shocking that it's probably alive. Anyway, but so they present the baby to these two, and they see the baby, and Allison essentially takes the child, and Rhaenyra, you can see it in her eyes as she walks away with the baby. You can see her concern is like, oh well, I don't know how I feel about you essentially holding my child or going looking after my child. Again, was for the same reasons that she knows that like the concern is the crown and her ability to potentially murder or harm her children because of the status of power that she's potentially in right now, right? And they throw a twist into this. They throw a twist into here where it's kind of like, oh, hey, like, yeah, he's still alive, but they just build upon the drama. They build upon the drama. They build upon the very complex situation that is now this dividing family, or this dividing situation that Otto fucking Hightower, if you remember way back when, had designed from long ago. Really, honestly, like it's very awkward. So the dash of conflict that is thrown more or less thrown in there is the fact that this bitch Allison is like, she whispers to Sir Laenor. He's like, oh, don't worry, Sir Laenor. At least I'm sure one of the children at one point, one of your children will eventually look like you. And I'm just like, damn. So she stay fucking about that. So she stay fucking about. She stay fucking and doing whatever it is that she want to do, and not even doing her duty to the crown, which is basically they're supposed to fucking have a kid, right? Like, but apparently that's not it. That says everything, that she's been sleeping with other men and bearing these children to these other men. So that's a bit of drama and contention thrown into the story that already was the whole situation with Rhaenyra and the Queen. So now we have these children that this child, so far as we know, being a factor that's not even suddenly Laenor's children. I just want to comment real quick on some of the, again, games that were just so graphic. They had to show they had to show the realism of it. She's walking away from the chambers, the blood that's like blood of afterbirth, like flowing off of her after she is now given birth. It's still there, and she, despite this being an tremendous amount of discomfort, pain, after just giving birth, she still wants to go see these people. It's a ridiculous request. So we switch back to another scene, and it's like Sir Harwin is there, and we meet Rhaenyra's other children as well. So this isn't the first child and that she's had, and apparently it would seem that this is not only the first child she's had. It looks like the first child she's had not with her husband, essentially. Because I mean, again, off the cuff, you gotta be real. Like, if you're seeing this for the first time, you gotta be real. It's like, who the fuck are these children? Like, who the fuck are these children? It's like, oh, and then also who their daddy is? Who's their father? Who's their papa? Because it looks like their papa is not that man. For context, guys, Sir Laenor is black. And I mean, I know this is Game of Thrones, and I was just kind of like rolling with it the first time watching it. I was like, okay, well, maybe, they're trying something new here, potentially, or something like, I don't know, something, maybe there's some kind of explanation as to why they don't look mixed race. They look straight up white. They look straight up like Caucasian children. There's got to be a reason for this or something, or maybe that's just like maybe Bernard was just like throwing the genetic interpretation of what we know to be in this world completely out of the window, and we're in the land of like fantasy. I mean, fuck, dragons are walking about like willy-nilly, like anything could happen. So again, on first watch, I was kind of like, sure, let's roll with it, sure. But it's not the second watch because I know what's really up. That's it. The awkwardness, and it's so obvious that like that baby in yours, like, yeah, I'm not gonna need to call Maury. Like, it's not you are not the father. You are not the father, sir. I can tell you right now. But at the same time, back in the day, they probably didn't have the technology and all the know-how to really quite understand. Like, I mean, you know, the likelihood of him not being the father is not likely. But I mean, here's the thing, right? And I don't want you guys to think that like I'm like biased. I don't think that I like I'm an idiot. I don't really understand how genetics work. But like realistically, like real talk, let's like bear away from this for like 2 seconds. A baby can, because I've seen it, and we've seen it like on Maury and other shows and etc. The skin color of a child doesn't necessarily matter. Sometimes the child come out. Sometimes they come out mixed. Sometimes they come out dark. Sometimes they come out. I'm talking about interracial relationships, by the way. They come out mixed, sometimes they come out dark, sometimes they come out mango skin colored or not mango skin colored. Sometimes they look fucking straight up white. They look like they could pass for Caucasian children. Sometimes they do come out. It's a rare thing. But there was this couple that was like the guy was white and the girl was like straight up from Kenya, like Africa, black. She's dark as shit. And the baby was blue-eyed, white, blonde hair, doing it was a male or female baby, I can't really remember, but the baby was doing its own thing. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes the baby's like ignoring genetics, all of that, and just like, nope, I want to be this. And like, realistically, that happens. And like, the fact that it just not have like DNA tests is like what back in the day of Game of Thrones and back in the day of House of the Dragon is the main factor, really, if anything. But like, the chances of that happening are so slim. Like one child being like that, being rare like that, you know, because they had other kids too, and the other kids were like mixed and they looked like mango skin or whatever. But they had one child. I'm not talking about the real world example. But the one child that they had which was straight up white. I mean, like that clearly shows that the probability it can happen. The child can choose whatever color it wants to be. Like straight up, it might not be in the middle. It might be like veer to one side or veer to the other side. That can happen, but the likelihood, the probability of it happening is very, very low. Right? Like, we have to just be real for a second. So I was thinking, when I saw them, I was kind of like, that's exactly what was going through my mind. I was like, I mean, to have one child look like a Caucasian between you two, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, like you two are a mixed race couple. Shit happens. The baby chooses the color it wants to be, and the rest of your children are like half and half. But 3 kids straight up white. I mean, something going on, right? Like something quite right. There's a raised eyebrows, a raised suspicions to some degree that something is not quite adding up. But yeah, it just in the way how they played at that scene, it looked like Sir Harwin was actually the child father's child. So the next thing that they kind of explain is that they introduce a little bit more of the family that has now grown in this short amount of time. They explain that, or they illustrate that Alicent's children, who are white-haired children, by the way, just saying, who are white-haired children, they look like Targaryns. They actually look like Targaryns and look like they should be ruling upon the throne. It's just looks, it's just genetics. And when I say look like, I mean like they have like white hair, they have the pale as shit skin, like they look like Targaryens, like, right? They look like white people with like basically essentially like white hair. And Rhaenyra's kids look like, they stand side by side, and it's clear to see like whose kids are whose. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like wow. The black-haired children and the white-haired children. Yeah, it's like I said. Sorry, it's just clear to see. So they're in this dragon pit, and all of them are there. All the kids, just the kids, by the way, are there, and they're learning to train. Learning to train the dragon. How to train the dragon. That was a movie. Anyway, they're learning to communicate and actually like connect with dragons. Something actually like quite rare that we got to see. Like this is House of the Dragon. We didn't really get to see. We got to see how Daenerys Targaryen kind of sort of bonded with the dragons before in Game of Thrones, but it was kind of a cool thing to actually see them training with the dragons, or how they would get them to train with them, how they've been doing it for apparently a number of years. In this context, because like I said, this is a prequel. In Game of Thrones, all the dragons are wiped out; they're gone. But it was just like really neat to actually see. It was like, oh, this is how they train dragons, and this is how they bond with them. The moral lore behind that, I think that was actually really, really cool, because they left it up to some very vagueness as to who Daenerys' people were, and and how they acquired these dragons. Even in the beginning of this, how they acquired these dragons in the first place, and how they necessarily create a bond. There was a little moment in the beginning, I think, in the first early episodes, where Daemon was trying to get the girl to touch the dragon to make sure like he understands, like the dragon understands like that's a friend. And there was a moment like that, but this is a little bit different. We actually see them feeding the dragon and understanding how they create a bond with said dragon. So like just essentially these dragon practices things. And the kids, kids can be so cool. And the kids essentially go about talking to I forget his name, not Aegon, but one of the white-haired brothers, Jace, I think, goes down, or the second son of Rhaenyra goes down and brings back up a pig with like wings attached to it, and he brings it to one of the white-haired children, who Aegon, the firstborn child, was making fun of him. Like all of them were being dicks, right? All of them were making fun of him because he apparently didn't have a dragon. And that's also something I didn't really know with came to like Game of Thrones. Well, not Game, well, the whole lore behind this. That's actually something interesting. So not all Targaryens apparently are able to bond with a dragon. Apparently, that was something that was new, because I thought that what essentially happened was that like they get this, because it kind of explained it in the early episode with the child that had passed away in the miscarriage. But what essentially happens is that when a child is born, they get a dragon's egg. And Daemon explains it like the dragon's egg sleeps with the baby, and they form a connection from there. They form a bond for the dragons from there. And as what coincides with the traditions of their house, exactly what Daemon said. But I didn't know that some eggs don't hatch. He says that to one of his, Sir Laenor's sister actually says that, Laena says that to her daughter, who we meet eventually. We'll talk about that later, but she says that too. And I was like, oh, so on first watch, I was kind of like, I didn't know that like some dragons don't even hatch. Which means that you can be dragonless, even if you have the egg, and you could grow up with a dragon's egg and it can never actually hatch. Meaning that you just don't have a dragon. And I assume that that's what happened with one of the second-born son of Alicent, essentially. I thought that was like actually kind of weird. Because like if you have an egg, I thought it would just happen. But maybe there's some kind of like magical thing, or I don't know. I wish that they would explain that a little bit more. I wish that they would explain essentially that, hey, there's a reason. There must be a reason. They're probably gonna do it later, but must be a reason why some eggs don't hatch. And knowing everything that actually happens, maybe it's like fated that they weren't supposed to have a dragon. Then only certain individuals are supposed to have a dragon. They only hatch around people maybe with good-natured hearts, or who have hearts of who knows what like their kind of ruler and or king that they would be. So yeah, we switch scenes and we see that Allison also has a daughter. Forgetting her name now too, but she's a little bit odd. She's a little bit weird. She's a little bit kind of sort of out there. She's different for sure. She's the first way we meet her, she's inspecting a millipede. You know, most girls would kind of be like, "Oh my god, I like insects, blah blah blah." They're all weird and etc. But this chick is not afraid of insects whatsoever. She seems very taken with them. With it, I should say, the millipede or centipede that she had in her hand, I think. And she was kind of like just playing around with it. And the reason I think she's weird is because she talks in like riddles and like very sparse kind of like dialogue. I think there's a kind of deepness to her subtle deepness to her that we are like essentially missing. But essentially, we see, the point is, I think, with this entire thing was that we see the kids are into the mix now. And the whole issue was, well, Allison was afraid of was like losing her kids and her kids being murdered, or her as well as her being slain when Rhaenyra essentially takes the throne. But we have kids now. We just don't have the one or two kids. We have like I think like 6 amongst them now. There's like 3 on Allison's side and 3 on Rhaenyra's side. And yeah, children are thrown into this mix. And I feel like now is a time that like, first of all, I'm surprised that they've made it this far. They have had these children, but I think that like we're reaching. I think they did this to speed this up because we're reaching more of the moment of conflict that Allison has been worried about all these years. So essentially the trick that we talked about with Allison's second son, he goes running to mommy, and mommy goes running to daddy, basically. And Viserys and Allison have a talk about how it's Rhaenyra's children's fault that he's being teased. All of them was making fun of him. They were all, and they seem. The funny thing is too, the kids seem to like, for the most part, somewhat they don't know any better. The kids, they're getting along just fine, and they're family. It looks like, and they don't have any spitefulness towards any other. You know, just like kids playing, sometimes rag on one another just because like of X, Y, and Z reason. That's just what kids do. They can definitely be cruel. But she goes to Viserys and she starts talking about making accusations about how, and subtly, but it's basically what it is, about how Rhaenyra's children, basically how their father is not their father. You know what I mean? And Viserys tells this story about a white horse that he a black horse that he once had, and he is saying that essentially she went off and mated with a really white horse, and then had like a mixed brown horse, and he makes the comment that nature is a strange thing. Essentially saying that he didn't expect the horse to basically come out brown or mixed colored. And Allison just refutes it. It's kind of like, oh, did you see? How did you know that one was? It's like straight up, just like you see, she shows a little bit of racism here, just like or discrimination towards like people's, I should say, skin color. Yeah, and she's kind of like, she just makes the comments like, how did you know? How did you know it was that horse that made? You know, that it was those 2 specific horses that made that baby, right? How do you know? Did you witness the act? And I'm just like, she is on a vendetta she's essentially on a vendetta to ensure that, she secures her place, and she's just. I feel like it was just spitefulness to try to. You sense just, and not wickedness, but just this paranoia. She's afraid. It's sad. It's just pity. I kind of pity her. You pity her because she's like You can sense the fear within her that she wants to remain on top, and she wants to expose Rhaenyra for all of her doings, and she wants to just basically paint her children as nothing but good children, and children with nothing but good, honest, stand up, upright children. That's basically what she tries to paint them as, and like they had nothing to do with bullying her second child. And so Alicent tries to go to her firstborn son and talk to him about it. And how he meets this boy is he's a stand-up citizen, right? He does nothing wrong. Stand-up citizen does nothing wrong. He's dedicated to being the future lord, the future king of the Southern Realms. That he's the one. He should be chosen. He's the correct choice. And they cut away scenes as to where she tries to meet with him, and he's jerking off above a tower into the city for sick kicks, until his mother is like, what are you doing? I was like, and he has to cover up his shame with a blanket. Standard. Yeah, your kids do no wrong, lady. Your kids don't do any wrong. I just feel like Alicent is just such a hypocrite. Like, she just can't believe. She's just one of those moms, like, just can't believe. Her child, not my child. No, never, not my child. I can't do anything. He can't do anything wrong, and is never incorrect. So she has the conversation with him essentially as to like, well, exactly, tell me what happened with, who made fun of who started it. And then, of course, like being a child that he is, he blames, sorry for that, he blames one of Rhaenyra's children and said that they started it. Oh yeah, it was Chase. I was like, no, it was all of you. You all were palling around. You all were like making fun of him because you're kids, you're children. And it's just the fact that she wouldn't believe that, and she believes him, and it's the fact that she wouldn't believe that, like, oh, her kid wasn't joining in all this dumb fun, and understanding that her kid, and basically saying that, oh, it just basically spoke to me, Karen mom. Do you know what I mean? A Karen mom, like, ugh, fucking Karens. Anyway, Alicent tries to explain to Aegon that, like, listen. Like, eventually, that Rhaenyra's children are succeeding to the thrones, and they are set right now currently to be the kings of the next kings and queens. The next kings of, after her death. They are to succeed the throne, and if they succeed the throne, and Rhaenyra succeeds the throne as well, she could basically end the line, and she can basically sentence them to death. And she's so, again, you pity her because she's so convinced of this lie that Otto fucking Hightower, yes, I'm going to refer to him as that from now on, has planted within her. Otto fucking Hightower has planted deep within her. She's so convinced that this is and will come to pass that she screams in Aegon's face, telling him that you are the threat. The basic fact that you're alive, you are the threat. You are a threat to whoever rules when Rhaenyra comes into power, the succession to the throne. The basic fact that you are alive is a threat. So she's teaching him essentially what she was taught, which is incorrect in so many ways. It's that generational trauma that we see it like live and in color right there. From what I talked about earlier in those earlier episodes, Otto Hightower was taught this, so he taught it to Alicent, and Alicent was taught it, so he taught it to Aegon. And to show him, to teach him that there's no other way, the fact that he's alive and he's being a threat to the kingdom by just being alive, by just breathing air. And it's wrong, because it doesn't have to necessarily go that way. Again, if you just talk about it, and even if that was the case, and even if it was so, I mean, like, it's something to recognize to him, but it's about the way how you go ahead and introduce these things to your children. And 110%, that's not the correct way. The end. That's just not the right way. Yeah, fucked up. So in this episode, we got to see what was going on with Daemon. Daemon's life has changed a little bit as well over these years. And he has, from what it looks like, essentially, he's not really necessarily in King's Landing, but he's taken up refuge or as being a visitor in this, it looks like a Donish, I want to say, Donish place with Sir Laena, the Laenor's brother. And he's taken up just basically being a visitor there and living and flying around with his dragons there. And it seems like, for the most part, they're together now and they have children. For context, Sir Laena, Laenor's sister, is also black, and they have kids. And then that's what is like. It's still funny because it kind of solidifies to you that, like, okay, the stuff that's going on with Rhaenyra, something right there, like. Something right there, something going wrong, something ain't adding up there, because their kids are, again, they have more than one. Again, if it was just a one kid that was just happened to be white, okay, but their kids are straight up black. They're like straight up mixed race, I should say. They imply that they are mixed race. They have color in their skin, right? Even though daddy's white and mommy's like dark skin, you know what I mean? They have some kind of color towards them. And it's kind of like, okay, like, again, it just solidifies, like, that's how you would expect them to actually, if the things actually go down if, you know, their parents or one of their parents are colored. And it's the visual implications, essentially, that just, it speaks out so loud. So anyway, Laena has essentially married Daemon now. And like I said, they have these kids. And it's just, it's so weird to see. It's weird, I'll admit, like on the first watch, and the second one too, it's just weird to see, because Daemon, we know him as like potential antagonist, right? Potential antagonist who is essentially not a villain, but a frenemy to the king and his brother, who's also his brother. And it was like, we didn't know how to feel about Daemon. But now we see him in a different light, and what he's been trying, it looks like, and it implicates basically that Daemon has been away from King's Landing for quite some time. And he's now focused on, you know, it looks like he's matured. He was a young man before. He lived his life. He did those things. He, you know, was impressionable. He was a knight. He fought in this army in previous episodes. He did some debaucherous things. He was whoring around with whores. And it's just again, we see him in a different light now. He's this like, it's like he's done like a 180. He's trying to be this like upstanding family man, essentially. It's like his wild days are behind him, and now he has a wife who is now currently pregnant. He has two daughters that he looks like he basically respects. He spends time with his daughters, and it's just again, the time changes all of us, yes, but it's just like Daemon has changed so much. He's almost a respectable character. If anything, he's almost a respectable character. And it's like, it's hard. It's hard to like, it's hard to see him in this kind of light, essentially. But the proposal of essentially during a dinner that they have in this Danish kingdom is that if they would like to stay and be their protectors, essentially. And Daemon essentially wants to stay and has no interest in returning to King's Landing or whatever. Again, he looks like he's fucked off. He just wants to do his own thing. And he has no interest in like essentially being anything in the crown and being king and all that other stuff. He's like, he just looks very comfortable, mature, and he doesn't look like he wants to do anything stupid, like fuck his niece. Even though he technically is fucking his family because it's like that's his cousin or something like that. The incest thing in the story in this whole game, House of the Dragons thing, I'm gonna admit, guys, I'm not a fan of. It's just honestly, but it is what it is. It's happening and it's happened. And that's how they truly. That's how they really truly did things back in the day. I mean, it kind of makes sense that some people are psychopaths of certain descent. I'm gonna get into that one. That's something for someone else to deal with. Anyway, so they also showed more training with the boys, and I kind of like this. Like I said, this is actually pretty cool. They did more training. Sir Christian Cole is now training the white-haired Targaryns. These white-haired Targaryns, these two boys that are born to Alicent, and he's taking them to town. And I mean, Sir Harwin is there. The father, we can't call him a deadbeat, but the actual father of Rhaenyra's children is there as well, and he's reminding Sir Christian Cole to look after the younglings as well. Look after the younger dark-haired children as well, and not just be subjected to only looking after certain people of certain descent. That's essentially what it is. So again, like in the interactions, the vibe that you get amongst the children is that they're all buddies, like they're all friends, they're all family. There's no real angst, I want to say, towards either party or any of them really within the group. They're just kids being kids. I mean, it might be from the perspective of me, and let me know if you guys think about this stuff in the comments as well, guys. Let me know if you guys agree. Like the interactions or the feelings between the interactions and the feelings between the kids and in general. Do you feel like there was any kind of tension between them? It looks like they were all, for the most part, despite them being different hair color, despite them looking differently, it looks like they were just getting, they were just living in harmony just to some extent. They didn't really care. There wasn't really a real reason for them to hate each other. And which basically further, illustrates that it's all the adults putting these ideas into their heads and sowing the generations to making them feel and confirming to them that they are threats eventually, which we see. We'll no spoilers. We don't want to talk about that. We're focused on the episode. So what happens in this training thing is that they pit the oldest brother of Alicent and the oldest brother, the oldest son of Alicent and the oldest son of Alicent and the oldest son of Sir Harwin. They pit them against one another, and essentially they start the fight. But the thing is, Sir Aegon, the oldest son, gets a little carried away, and Harwin has to essentially save him. And this is where things pop off. And Sir Christian Cole makes a comment as essentially saying that, only someone who is a son to this person would care this much. And Harwin just loses it and starts punching on him, because essentially he's saying in front of everyone that, oh, like, you must be his child, like you are his child. And like, we all know that Sir Christian Cole knows because he fucked Rhaenyra. And like, he knows like what the king's daughter is about, essentially. He knows. Just wow. But he knows. And that, the basic fact that he knows, it stirred something up in him to like basically go off, and he just starts wailing on his face, essentially. So we catch back up with Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra starts to hear about the situation that happened in the yard, about how Sir Christian Cole and Sir Harwin are basically fighting over the situation that's happened now. And Rhaenyra starts to overhear, the conversation between Sir Harwin and his father. And it's basically how he would be executed as well as Rhaenyra if the people found out that her kids were actually his kids. And it's just, again, this whole drama. They really know how to like amp up the drama and really expand the complex shit that has now occurred in this storyline. Also, guys, I want to point something out real quick. Remember that whole fucking secret door that I was talking about, like I think in episode 4 or something like that? Rhaenyra fucking uses that door again. And she goes through the secret passageway within her room, and to actually get out of the room and to overhear the conversation between Sir Harwin and Sir Harwin and his father. And the fact that she used that fucking door, that means she didn't forget about the door. She didn't forget how to use the door. She didn't forget how to use it. I mean, my earlier, the reason I bring this up is because back in episode 4, I was kind of like, did she forget how to use the door? Did she forget how to use that door when she fucking like went off to, when she went off to fucking with Damon and fucking about, and she came back right to the front door, and that's why Sir Christian Cole was so like confused. So instead of sneaking them back the way that she came to the front door. Again, I'm not sure if the door locks or something like that. I'm pretty sure she can use a stone to like pop it open. But like, again, what the fuck? Like, that just proves again she didn't forget about it. She knew it was there. Yeah, I guess on the door this only works one way. And that's something that kind of like really like bothers me. Anyway, so Sir Laenor comes back from a day of drinking with his one of his lusty boys, because he's gay and married to Rhaenyra. And we know this because basically that's one of the lines that Rhaenyra essentially says. And war has come about, and he's excited to go off to war. And Rhaenyra's like, you fool, like, you stupid fool. People are starting to suspect and starting to catch on to our ruse of a marriage, essentially. People are starting to catch on. And it can mean the death for both of us. And essentially, so Laenor just basically fights with her about like how he's been loyal for 10 years. And she's like, no. You've been fucking all these men, drinking all this wine. You've been treated like royalty. It's not like you were a slave. It's not like you were allowed to do whatever you wanted to do. And we both agreed to do this, to do our own thing, to be married in the face of everybody, but to be, debaucherous in secret. So basically, I'm commanding you to stay here in this fucking thing with me when a storm is basically coming, essentially. And he's not too happy about not being able to, go to battle as he sees fit, as he considers himself a true knight, apparently. And he thrusts for battle, essentially, and swords. Get it? Because he's gay. Anyway, so yeah, we change back to the scenes, essentially about how Laena and her daughter are talking now, about how her egg hasn't hatched, and it doesn't really look like she is going to essentially have a dragon. But she explains to her daughter that Vhagar was not a dragonborn to her, and it's the oldest and biggest dragon. But it was a dragon that forged a bond along with her, and that's how she's able to ride him and command him and do all this other stuff essentially. And it gives that, like I was talking about this earlier, but that kind of gives us an insight into like how the connection that these people have with the dragons, essentially. And it kind of actually, if you think about it, proves the fact that like it's all bullshit if you think about it. Like that animal doesn't really necessarily know for whatever reason. It only knows what it imprints off on you, really, right? And anybody could really bond with a dragon just because these people have like white hair and they're called Targaryns, that they can bond with it. I don't know. Comment below, guys. Do you agree with me? Do you feel like I agree. And actually, it's not even if you agree with me. Like, Viserys actually says it in the beginning that it's all an illusion. It's kind of sort of like a lie, really. This idea of dragons, right? I mean, men thinking that they can control dragons. It's just a bonding thing that happens with the dragon. A biological bonding thing that happens with the dragon. It's not just unique to the Targaryens. It's just something that they do, and that they've been known to do. That's what it is. But yeah, and it just, I don't know. I just kind of opens my eyes to like the world a little bit as to like, because I thought even back in the Game of Thrones days, I thought that like, okay, they are unique people that only they can control dragons, and they have the ability to bond with dragons. But the more and more I watch this, the more and more I'm convinced that that's not necessarily the case. I'm not convinced that that's necessarily the case. But yeah. Anyway, so the next thing that kind of happens, and Lena and Daemon are talking about how she doesn't basically want to stay there anymore and be a visitor. She wants to go back home and where she to Driftmark and to actually raise her kids in the way of like that's traditionally in the styles of our house, because she hadn't necessarily been doing that. And this is like I felt like in that moment she was trying to convince him to become the old Daemon, and to almost kind of like, I think that's why he was staying away, because he didn't want to be tempted by the chair, the power, and tempted by going after the chair. Do you know what I mean? So I think that he was, and again, he's matured so much. It looked like he's matured so much. And I feel like a part of me was kind of like, well, on the first and the second watch, I feel like when I was watching this, it's kind of like, if he goes back there, I know you say these things that this is the person that you fall in love with, but like, if he goes back there, I fear that he will become the Daemon that the dickish Daemon that we don't like. You know what I mean? The one that goes around whoring about and doing all these other things and killing his wife and etc. And I don't think that it'd be really wise for him and or them to really return back to that area if he's going to become that person again. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes the environment in someone's environment does affect the actions and behaviors that they take. So, yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about the fact that Alicent and Rhaenyra tried to Rhaenyra tried to offer up one of her sons to marry Alicent's daughter, essentially. Now, that was happening. She stopped a whole meeting, but before that, she was basically conflicting with Alicent about certain situations and certain statuses of the how the kingdom was essentially being ruled. So she stops the whole fucking meeting. She proposes this. Now, here's the thing: if this had happened, right? Wouldn't this solve everything? Wouldn't the basic fact that like Alicent and Rhaenyra are now family. They're having children of their own, and their houses are united. They don't necessarily, and I mean, and again, like, I'm not saying that, okay, oh, well, Ash is on board with the fucking incest thing now. No, guys, I'm not on board. Get out of your head right now. No. Never been on board, never gonna be on board. But it's in play, and they seem to be very comfortable with it. And if they are, then more power to them, and that's great. But and they're using it. That's what's happening. They're okay with it. They seem comfortable enough with the incest. Go for it. And the funny thing is, during this proposal, right? It's so far, and Allison is still wearing the color of green, which is the color of this bluish green, but still green, of war for the High Towers. This would solve everything, right? But the issue is that, like, Allison is an outsider. And it didn't occur to me on the first watch, but on the second watch, I was like, think about that. If you were in a situation, right, where, okay, yeah, you know Targaryens or your husband's people are just like, oh, incest? Yeah, fine, whatever, sure, let's do it. Right? You know what I mean? Like, or some of the ways how the family was, right? They were just, and you knew that they had what she would Allison like queer customs. That's what she said. If you know that they had queer customs, would you adapt to those queer customs? Would you accept them into your life, or would you fight against them and go and remember the ways of which you were born, instead of adapting to them and accepting them and being respectful? Well, it's not respect, but adapting the ways of your partner's house, right? Because again, the incest and all this other stuff, completely fine with the Targaryens. But how fine are the High Towers with that situation? Do you know what I mean? Because Allison is not a Targaryen, right? And that's when I knew in that moment. I was like, before the first watch, I didn't think about it this deep. But like the second watch, I was like, lady, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. The basic fact that she's too scared to ever think about that there's some kind of peace to be brokered between them. She's scared of Rhaenyra. Allison is afraid of Rhaenyra. And that fear is causing her to outlash and think the most horrible accusations and the most horrible outcomes possible. And that's what's making her choose and do make these certain choices that she's making, actually. But yeah, like, you can see it in her face that it's gonna basically be a no. But she says, like, "Oh, me and the king will take it under advisement. Thank you for the option of doing that." But dude, it's not gonna happen. And then they say as much in the next scene when Allison and the king are essentially talking. He's just like, the basic fact to think that I would let my child marry one of those pale, normal face looking people, or something like that. Something that's very insulting is what he is what she says. And yeah, it's pretty, like I said, it's pretty fair, and it's pretty evident that, like, I don't know, she's definitely not comfortable with it. And I didn't really think about, like, that's one of the reasons why she might not be comfortable with it. But yeah, I mean, there you go, really. And it's it honestly, it is what it is. Like, I mean, it is what it is, but also it's kind of sad because, again, if they were to get married, if everybody was cool with the whole incest thing, marrying cousins and all that sort of stuff, if everybody was fine with it, then it would solve everything. Allison and the kid and and her child and Rhaenyra's child would be married, and they would be considered family. They probably start having babies, and then it would be necessarily no conflict. Hopefully, no conflict within the family because they're all connected now. But obviously, it doesn't go down that way, and obviously, I guess it can't go down that way because there wouldn't be no conflict. There would be no show. The show would be over. Anyway, so Harwin's father goes to the king, and he essentially tries to give his resignation as hand of the king. And it's mainly due to the fact that Sir Harwin has been fucking his daughter, basically, and giving her children. Like, and he's like, and hey, this is so funny because like Viserys is like, oh well, why are you choosing to leave me now? Why are you choosing to to leave your post now as Hand of the King? And he's kind of like, I cannot say Lord, my lord, or whatever it is. And he's like, well, then if you can't say, I do not accept your recognition. And it's kind of like, oh, poor Viserys. Viserys, if you actually knew the truth. And Alicent is kind of like, I was like, oh, this bitch doesn't see, he can't see that's the reason why he's leaving. He wants to leave is because, you know, he's the father, he's the real grandfather of those children. Oh man. Yeah, and all through all of this, I just can't help but think, again, I know I've said it before in this podcast, and I keep saying it, but Otto motherfucking Hightower, I wonder if he's dead. We don't see him in this episode, and I don't think we see him in the next couple of episodes, actually, but I wonder what is the status of Otto fucking Hightower, because he put this poor girl Alicent in this situation that's just very awkward now. And yeah, so something I want to talk about too, honestly, is the Alicent leaves, right? Alicent leaves the chambers of the king, and she looks like she goes into her own chambers. But what's this? She has a candlelight dinner set up for her. And who is it? Sir Larys, actually. The crippled guy who was with them on the hunt. And it seems like they're having dinner together. So my first thought was like, oh, but you have all the rights to judge Rhaenyra for this, that, and the second. But it appears like, I don't know if it's true, but it appears like you're fucking Sir Larys. It looks like you're fucking Sir Larys, but so you're the only one that gets to have like the debaucherous lifestyle and live this like out of this non-conventional lifestyle of that of a queen or a princess. Really, I mean, like I would find it quite some might find it quite inappropriate that you're having dealings with him in the first place. But that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case, honestly. It's a weird. What we learn is that it's a weird relationship, a very, very weird, awkward, gross relationship between Sir Larys, who I maintain is probably to some degree a psychopath, honestly, and Alicent. Because Alicent starts essentially complaining about how the fact that, you know, the king doesn't see how damaging or how blind he is to the fact that, you know, he doesn't see how the fact that his daughter is being essentially out and about, kind of lecherously, and doing whatever she wants. But I mean, hey, like he sees what he wants to see, one, and then two, it's really none of their business. But Sir Larys basically takes it as a call to action to, hey, let's go ahead and fuck up or fuck with let's go ahead and fuck about with the with Sir Harwin and make sure that he, you know, pays for his misdeeds. And he, oh man, the brutalness of this, the psychopathic brutalness of this man. He cuts out he finds some convicts and he cuts out their tongues, right? So they can't tell who hired them or who it was. And it's brutal. And they show them the cutting off of the tongues. And they show us all of this and etc. And it's pretty fucked. So he gets these agents, right? And he gets these agents to go and set up a fire that burns Sir Harwin and his father in a castle, and that's the last we heard of him. And as far as we're concerned, as far as we know, he's dead now. Killed just like that. For nothing. Well, not for nothing, but for the fact that he went ahead and had some dealings with the queen. Princess. And then we see essentially the fact that, like, oh, Allison is so remorseful about this. He didn't mean, that's not what he instructed. That's not what she instructed to do. And the first stone is essentially cast. And we see the first stone of war, really, is essentially cast. So it went from a lie that they told back in a few episodes about her virtue, and now the first stone is being cast to war, essentially. Before that, that leads down the road of all of that, we have Daemon, and his wife is attempting to give birth. Now, they play out a similar situation that happened to Viserys early in episode 1, where, again, the struggles of childbirth is now caught up to Laena, and she's having problems delivering the baby. And it's a really rough scene to watch, because you can see that she's in pain and she's struggling to deliver this child. And the doctor has basically said that she's reached a limit, and he has to make, essentially it comes down to, he has to make a decision as to, try to save the child or to attempt to save his wife. You know what I mean? And he's asking this really difficult questions as to, like, will my wife survive it, and etc. And before he can even answer, before he can even make the choice, before he can even, like Viserys had to do, he's actually spared this choice. And Laena goes to Vhagar, the dragon, and she's screaming Dracarys. And the dragon, you can kind of like see it, the dragon's like confused as to like what's going on. And until the dragon actually gets it, like he wants her to burn her. And Vhagar hesitantly, it looks like she's like begging for this, because she's in it seems like she was in so much pain. And Vhagar, there's a moment where you think that, like, okay, maybe he's not going to do it. But Vhagar actually lights her on fire and torches her and essentially kills her. Now, they cut away, essentially, they don't let us know what the situation was. And she's burns right in front of Daemon. And they don't know what the situation was in terms of the baby. I think it's implied that the baby doesn't necessarily know if, like, we don't necessarily get to know if the baby is survived or not. All right. So how to figure that out? And I can't really remember if it does or not. I have to figure that out or see more of this, like maybe in the next episode of House of Dragon. Yeah. And then they show a scene with Sir Harwin essentially leaving. And they talk about how he talks about how he'll miss them, and etc. And how he'll be a stranger to them. And then the boy, I think the oldest, Rhaenyra's child, Chase, asks Rhaenyra if he's a bastard and if Sir Harwin's actually his father. And Rhaenyra just responds that, oh, you're a Targaryen. That's all that really matters. And I can't help but think that she had the opportunity to tell her child the truth, to come clean, and to just be honest. I think the purest thing that you can give a child, the first thing that you can give your kids, you want them to grow up right and true, is to be honest with them. The truth might be very difficult to explain to them. It might be very complex and they might not understand, but they will respect you more in life, I think, if you tell the truth. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Definitely, if you agree with me or if you don't agree with me in that regard, for sure. Should parents just be honest with the kids? I think 110% yes, and always. Anyway, so Rhaenyra decides to leave King's Landing. She's given up on trying to broker peace with Alicent. She's like, okay, it's time to go. And she tells Sir Laenar that, hey, we're leaving and you can bring your boy toy with you, essentially. Essentially. And that's essentially the end of the episode. But we'll leave the episode with Alicent having such regret of the kill, the hit that Solaris has done, which I talked about earlier. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Something that I think that she was. I wanted to say that about that. I think she was actually remorseful. I think she was genuinely remorseful about him dying. Him dying and him being murdered. But it was the first, like I said before, first stone cast of the beginning of war. Then that's the end of the episode. So now we're gonna do a segment called Ash's favorite scenes and Ash's worst scenes. Ash's worst scenes first. This episode didn't really have any worst scenes, really. A lot of good scenes, honestly. This is probably like a really, really good episode in my opinion. There wasn't really any worst scenes in this. So no worst scenes, but it's time for Ash's favorite scenes. So Ash's favorite scenes. So man, it's again such a good episode. I think coming in at number 3 has got to be the evolution of Daemon. When we catch up with Daemon back in in his own palace now, it looks like he looks so mature, and the fact that he's spending time with the fact that he has his own daughters now and he's spending time. I like the scene because it shows that the evolution within Daemon, the growth within Daemon, has come so far. He went from being lecherous and like disloyal and me not like necessarily being the biggest fan of Daemon to him being. We see him in a different light. I like that contrast of we were getting a lot of negativity. So now we see him a lot and somewhat positivity. He's actually spending time with his kids. He looks very accepting of them. He seems to love them. He seems that he's forgotten about King's Landing. He's just living his own life because he was obsessed with the crown and was obsessed with Rhaenyra to some degree. But it looks like he's calmed down a little bit and he's okay with it. Now, whether the fact that he's going to go back to that is yet to be seen, but I like this version of Daemon. That's why it's not coming out at number 3. Coming in at number 2, I gotta say, second favorite scene in this is probably the issue or the scene with Solaris, and he is talking with he's talking with Alicent towards the end about how he murdered these people and how he set it up to where that they are dead now. It just basically, it shows 2 things. It shows that Alicent, I guess, didn't really want to start this war, and this is how it kind of, again, this is how the violence, I think, even though the whole thing was planned long ago, but this is how it's the first blow I think was struck, and it was just very interesting and to see. Actors did a great job here, but we actually get to see how much of a villain Sir Larys actually is. So again, like I said, like a psycho, he's like, no, and she's like, nobody told you to attack them, nobody told you to kill them, and he's like, yo, don't worry, you'll find a way to make it up to me. And it's like, I feel like he's now obsessed with the queen, and it's just ugh. Anyway, coming in at number 1, I gotta admit, favorite scene was the Dracarys scene of Sir Laena. She died by dragonfire, and how she was basically begging her to kill him. She basically begging Vhagar to kill her. because she was in so much pain from childbirth and from carrying the child. And I want to believe that the child lived through the fire, despite that. But the fact that like she she went ahead and took the choice out of Damon's hands, and she went to go and give her own life for her child. I thought that was very. It spoke in a kind of way. It was very. It was very communicative. Yeah, it was very communicative in the fact that like she would do anything for her child, and including attempting to sacrifice herself so her child could essentially be born, and also disregarding Damon's ability to make that choice, taking the choice of unburdening him kind of to a degree to take away from that choice. And so she made the choice to, sacrifice herself. Anyway, Linda, can we get the on-review score, please?
House of the Dragon episode 6 receives a 4 out of 5.
That's it for me, guys. I'm definitely out of time. Thank you so much for listening. If you listened all the way to the end, you are amazing. Thank you so much, guys. But that's going to do it for me. Guys, just before I go, just want to remind you, we got all of our socials going. We want to interact with you. Make sure you interact with us. Our Instagram and our Twitter, all of the social media things. Do all the social media things. Do the liking, do the subscribing. You guys know what they're all about. But lastly, before I go, just want to remind you guys, be sure to do this. Be safe, be kind, be you. Take care.